Circle up on May 18th, 2015, and any and all are welcome, needless to say. And I am a Catalyst provocateur based in the greater New York metro area, and that's my reason to be. And my gathering to this project goes back to early days, and I think that's it for me. Going left to right, I guess. Charlie, are you sort of circumstantially afflicted? If you want to put something in the chat, I'll read it out loud for you. And I'm going to, while Charlie's doing that, I'm going to jump to Lisa. Lisa, do you want to chime in and introduce yourself?
Hello, I've got allergy problems right now, so I'm probably going to try to speak as little as possible. But my name's Lisa Snow McDonald. I'm from the Los Angeles area. My background is media psychology, and I'm interested in peeragogy as far as how it can help us understand and perhaps create more efficient and more productive work environments.
Rad.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And Joe, you're up.
Yeah, I was just getting very excited about Lisa's idea. Lisa, I had found something to share about you that's relevant to me. So Lisa had suggested this interesting kind of dichotomy of the those who love to pursue the end goal and those who want to pursue the process. I think I've got another one that's either parallel or side by side, so we could get a 2x2, and we're starting to really get a advanced model. But anyway, I feel like I'm a corner case in this model. So I'm Joe, being a corner case in the model. I wanted to screen share this because it's brand new news. So one of my contributions to the project has been some technical assistance, and we got the, I would say, lemon-style news yesterday that our website was down. So if you go to peeragogy.org, you will find a blank page. Now, why? We were attacked by spammers who have infested our page with bad stuff. But never to worry, because all the content was backed up elsewhere, and I think it was this morning or yesterday night, I can't remember, I did a real quick integration onto GitHub. So it doesn't look quite as snazzy. This is a little bit simpler look and feel, but it was after one day of work. So this is, I think, going to be our new website. So it works. You've got some stuff. You've got all of our things. Let me see if I can find the Doug stuff. Well, there's the motivations. Gosh, that's a good question. No, I think the Doug stuff is in this workbook, which has to be added. So add content here. That's Doug coming. But for example, here's the Sphinx thing. So there's no pictures yet. They can show up, but it actually looks okay. It's kind of readable. It's a really low-tech, old-school style, and then it's got all of our names and stuff down there. So it's super simple, and the nice thing about this is you can update it via GitHub. So it's on GitHub. Here it is, and yeah,
very cool.
I can teach you guys how to do that. I made a little wiki guide somewhere. I think the wiki's in this other repository, but yeah. Yeah, so that was an emergency thing, but may have some good effects, because this is something I think we'd been meaning to do for a while, moving it, backing it up. It's a good thing it is backed up, so all of that content is even more current than what was actually on the website. So we've actually lost nothing. And yeah, we can teach people how to make it work. So I could even go through some of that now, but we may have some other things to talk about. Why don't we form a emergent agenda? I just dove in to show that off. I'll stop showing it off. I can go back to that in a minute. But yeah, Doug, do you want to add some agenda ideas? Big picture, focus picture. What's on your mind today?
Well, I am, as usual and as always, preoccupied with accessibility, transparency of accessibility, and ease of accessibility. So those two dimensions are really different things, and they're rarely unpacked. Normally, it's just like, people relate to these kinds of things in terms of how easy or hard it is to play, or whether it's open to everybody or a select few.
Mm-hmm.
And if you sort of eliminate the politics of the degree of openness, and you eliminate the preoccupation with protocols, the question becomes, how do we make it, what's the approach for making it easier for people that express an initial spark of interest or attentional inclination to expend attention with us? How do we make it easy for them to get in and get located, get oriented, and potentially dial in an area where they would like to help or contribute or get involved? And so that's and the lens through which that agenda arises is an experiential one qualified by the perspective of unconditional love. Now, the concept of unconditional love says that you love somebody in the way they want to be loved as opposed to the way you want to love them, which means it's all about figuring out what facilitation looks like for the array of people that might touch us or take an interest or have us catch their attention, and their desire thereafter to dig in or to get involved in some way. So our sort of job responsibility, should we choose to accept it, is really sort of extrapolating an array of profiles. And by the way, I think this project, what I'm really scoping and defining as a project, the orientation of this project is something that doesn't just apply to us in Peeragogy. It applies to any collective collaborative endeavor of any group of people. And because of that, I think it's exponentially valuable, both in service to our mission, the Peeragogy mission, but in service to the larger collaborative universe within which we hope to exist. So what is that? What does it mean? It means turning the telescope around and going, okay, so what are the array of folks coming at us that we could envision? And you just, Joe, you just alluded to two squares of a potential four square or n square dimension of this, which is there are those that on a very coarse 60,000 foot level, there are those that are process oriented and there are those that are project oriented, right? And I think those two pieces of the puzzle, there's some potential brainstorming and extrapolation that we can make of those two populations that fleshes out what part of the process are they interested in on a breakdown and more granular level, and what part on the project management or project execution part of it are they interested in contributing, and those are two different things. And come up with sort of a more granular layout. There's a dimension of the metacognition map that speaks to this, right? But I mean, I think it's worth actually digging into collectively and working on, so that we can come up with sort of a universe of profiles within the context of which anyone coming along can self-characterize and diagnose and locate themselves. So they can go, I belong here. And in locating myself there, I can contribute doing this. And if we can come up with the framework and matrix for somebody to do that easily, then I think we're well on our way to surfacing resources that are untapped, because in that process people are declaring themselves and what they're capable or willing to contribute or interested in potentially contributing. So that's the collective relative to the individual. And then there's the collective relative to sort of the collective resource pool on an aggregate basis. So what skills do we need that we might be missing for certain parts of what we're looking to do or undertake? And that provides the basis for reaching out to folks and saying, hey, is there anybody out there who likes this and can provide these services associated with that piece of this puzzle, as a sort of clock works, as a machine works. So the premise from a collaborative, collective aggregation standpoint is the goal and the mission of any group, collaborative group, is to make sure that they've gathered, attracted all of the ingredients they need to make the soup they want to make. And that's a function of contributions and skill sets and, content knowledge and effort, ergs, and attentional investment, etc.
Cool.
So that's sort of the at the forefront and burning lead end of my vision here.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a great focus, especially if we're thinking and sort of necessarily doing kind of a reboot of the site. So, Charlotte, you were aware of the bad and good news over the last 24 hours, so you don't need the update on that. But I should point a link to this quick start guide that I made. I think that would be a good eventual thing to put some of the stuff into, so that people quickly start finding themselves. But in the meantime, I just put a link to this thing called Coggle It, which I thought, why don't I start making a mind map around this issue? I thought, what would be a really good central node? I thought unconditional love seemed pretty awesome as a keyword. That's really, that's taking it to definitely the next level. I don't know if this works like Etherpad, in the sense that you just click on it and edit it, this coggle.it. If so, great. Otherwise, I'm happy to be the scribe, and I'll screen share it as well. So
Joe, it's telling me I need permission.
Yeah, so there you go. That's already, it's not
it is.
unconditional. You need permission. Okay, so okay. But if you get permission, I'll see if I can grant you permission. Hold on a second.
Yeah, that.
Invite people.
Yeah, unconditional love means you need to give me permission.
Unconditional trust.
Well, that's something he needs me to give him, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, how do I do it? Click on the sidebar. Okay, write it. All right, so let me work it out. Unconditional. Permission. I see this. I can invite you. So what if I just invite you?
So are we back on our way to getting the WordPress site back, or are we abandoning it?
I think the plan, as I have declared it, or what I've done here, is along the plan of abandon that and then hope for the best with this new website. So the content is even more up to date than the stuff that was on the WordPress. The WordPress
All right.
The WordPress.
And will it still be peeragogy.org? Because that's everywhere.
Peeragogy.org as of like later today or tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So it should be peeragogy.org with a different look, feel, and backend. So we'll have to learn a bunch of new stuff. Lisa, I'm inviting you, Lisa, as well. Hopefully that will. So I'm just using your Gmail account because I'm assuming you're logged into Google for this chat. Charlotte dot peer. So, yes, ending. Okay, that sounds like some people have gotten their invitations. So now try. Hopefully that means that you have permission since I invited you. If there's 2 levels of it that you need permission and an invitation, then I'm really going to give up. Problem sending it. We can't guarantee it was received. Did I type your name wrong? Charlotte. Again.
No, that should be.
Send. Okay. Well, anyway. So yeah, click to edit. The thing. Now, do I have permission to edit the thing? I see Lisa's arrived. Good. So Lisa, this is allergy, non-hypoallergenic. Might ask you to weigh in here. Lisa's got a sneezing problem, so she doesn't want to sneeze on us. So, but yeah, you can. The thing that got me thinking about this was the process, and then you'll figure out the user interface. So you just click on things. Process and product was Lisa's thing, and the one I was thinking maybe going another way, or we can move these around. And this is like a confession. So I'm going to do this confession live on air. How would I put it? Wording.
Julia is here.
Related.
Hola.
Hi, Julia. Versus say, I don't know. So there's my model.
Hi.
Hola.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay. Let's hope today I'm not going to have problem with my connection.
Yeah, it's very, very good right now.
It sounds good today. Yeah.
So yeah, just to catch you up, I guess, and for anyone else who's joining on the event page or whatever, we did Doug laid out a really interesting topic of how can someone who's new to the project, and you're one of the newest, so you can be our resident expert, Julio. How
Yes.
can someone who's new to the project get engaged and do what they want to do? What do they need to get involved? And so that's something that applies concretely to you and a little bit more abstractly to other people who we haven't yet met. So we're looking in a little bit at this webpage here, which is like a quick start guide. A link to that. This is a quick start guide for the handbook, and it's new. I just jotted this down today. But other people have been saying, we need a more clear guide to how to do things. So this is another thing where sign up is necessary to edit this, but we can make notes. And then we're making notes also onto this, where I can send you an invite in a second, just as a kind of mind around that. So there you go. There's that. But I'll send you an invite because you're going to need permission, apparently. So I'll do that in just a minute. So it looks like Lisa's made it through the permission thing. I don't know if Doug and Charlotte have.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Let me see. I was doing something else.
Something worked.
Okay.
Listen. I'm having problems. So I'm leaving, and then I'll come back again. Okay.
Okay. Good luck.
So we're on the quick start or Coggle?
On this Coggle at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe as people add things, they should just sort of introduce them by voice. It looks like Doug is busy adding things, so that's cool. Doug, what are you adding?
Error. Oh, sign up. Log in.
I added preference competency. Now, who added deviant, and could they explain that?
So I'm going to put some of these things, I added it, I'm going to put some of these things, comfort, preference, and competency, kind of close by each other because they're a bit like a cluster. But
Yeah.
I added them as a kind of almost a parallel with Lisa's idea of product versus process. So what I mean is that something I have to. Some people like authority. Let's put it that way. Some people really like being told what to do. Some people also really like telling other people what to do. And I remember when Lisa was making this nice video, and Lisa, maybe you can find the link about that, but Lisa has a good video about like a way of organizing a workplace where it's basically a hierarchy. So, you know, just the typical kingpin in front and then all the other pins behind the kingpin.
So
yeah.
Can I interject something on that?
Go ahead.
If we're mapping in service to a 3.0 world and approach,
Yeah.
sort of a core fundamental change, a non-industrial, non-competitive, non-authority, non-hierarchical, non-Taylor-esque formulation, right? That we're really trying to define new.
Hmm.
So in that context, the buried in the meme of leadership and all of that stuff you just mentioned, which maps to sort of decision-making authority and control,
Mm-hmm.
is very much of that thing. It's of the old order.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to sort of distill out the essence of those memes in a new frame, in a 3.0 frame, then what it becomes is sort of the meme of leadership and authority really maps to the role of facilitation.
That's interesting.
Okay, and leadership and authority aren't invited to the party.
Yeah.
That there are folks that like facilitating, there are folks that like organizing, there are folks that like prioritizing.
Yeah.
But those are politically neutral decisions that don't necessarily instantiate power, authority, control in them.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, and in the same way, some people maybe like giving. I'm going to just keep working off of this, but I know now that we're talking in the parallel way as well as here. But some people like giving, and some people at least apparently like giving, or getting, or at least accepting. Some people accept, and I think you know, with facilitation, some people may love being the facilitator. Doug, I think what you're doing is suggesting us there are lots of virtues to us, for us to love being good facilitators. And then there's newcomers who may, even without knowing it, love getting helpful facilitation. But yeah, it's not necessarily about getting off on telling people what to do and then them doing just what we say. That would be more the authority model, which wouldn't really apply very well in a volunteer, well, setting, at least not like this one, possibly.
Yeah. So it's really interesting when you start from sort of a primary route of facilitation for all of the memes that traditionally map to things like authority, leadership, and all that stuff. If you start with sort of facilitation as the top layer, and then south of that, one form of facilitation could be providing directions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to get from A to B. Another type of facilitation could be, you know, protocols. Another type of facilitation could be, you know, sort of prioritization process. And if you work, you know, if you work collectively and consensually, then you really take out the authority preemption meme. So what you're talking about in terms of that thing about people organically have been programmed and trained to be more comfortable with a parental figure, like mom or dad going, do this, go there, do that. Yes, you can do that. No, you can't do that, etc. Like, but the meme of that is actually power, control, authority, and discretion based. And in fact, part of the learn up, part of the adjustment adaptation to a new approach and involves unlearning that. So it's not about applying a facilitation principle from a passive-aggressive place, which is, I know you want me to tell you what to do and I'm not going to. It's about, even in that context, facilitating somebody and asking for what they want or what it is that would help them. And it actually can get to a satisfying delivery, facilitation support, or some kind of engagement or transactional dynamic that gets them satisfied relatively quickly, gets them on track relatively quickly, and makes them comfortable, right, in an unconditional love kind of way. But it never invokes the bad stuff. It just leaves it out of the equation.
So maybe we should also think a little bit about like Deviant 3.0. So what I meant by Deviant was not necessarily bad, although it's a kind of negative word. I think there's that new film out which I haven't seen. Are you Divergent? Maybe Divergent. I haven't seen
Right.
it. Has your daughter seen the Divergent series, Charlotte?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So she would be our expert on that. But maybe you can be a second order expert about that. I should go see it. It's about the having not seen the movie, what I mean is, these are people who think way outside the box. They're like, these are the what box?
Yeah. Exactly. I think you got the.
Yeah, and I for whatever reason, I think my basic inclination was along those lines in life. Like Leonardo, but probably like a bunch of other people who end up not making anything of themselves. So Leonardo happened to get lucky, and then he found people to pay for him to be creative. A lot of other people are creative, and they just sit at a Burger King making notes in their notebook, and they may be endlessly creative in that notebook, but not going anywhere from the point of view of society. So I think I'd be curious to hear about the 3.0 upgrade of that deviant / endlessly creative thing here, because even Leonardo is a very pre-3.0 kind of character. So,
I think are you familiar with the guys that developed the whole positive deviant thing? It was a book actually, but their idea was their thing was, and this sort of became sort of business book of the moment, right? And they talked about identifying positive deviants organizationally. And what it was based on and derived from was there was a catastrophic tsunami-like environmental event in the South Pacific. And there were a bunch of, there was a community that got hit particularly hard, and everybody was pretty much struggling and survive and starving to death. And there was one family that seemed to be okay. And upon further inquiry, what was discovered was that the particular parent of this family had recognized that the insects around them were a source of protein, and had started using that as a food source. And notwithstanding social convention that said that was not okay. So it was a positive deviance relative to social norm. It was a significant deviation from cultural prejudice against eating insects. But it ended up being innovatively life-saving and actually propagatable across the community to help them survive in the immediate short-term aftermath of food sources being cut off and means of aid and all of that being destroyed. And so what they posited was that in an organization there are positive deviants. And the attributes of the positive deviants are that, first of all, in what they're doing, whatever their job description or role is, they're mission-based. That there's a values, core, central attachment to the value they're bringing either to their organization or to other employees or to customers or to whoever is served by their particular contribution. Hello, Anna.
Hi, everyone. Long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And so these people operate from a driver and motivator that isn't paycheck based. It's based on a higher level of personal investment and involvement and commitment. The second thing is that they don't necessarily pay attention to the lines. If they see a path to execution that's more effective or more successful or is going to fix something or remedy something, they have no problem painting outside the lines to find a better way or a more productive approach. And that so they're not good order takers. And so the combination of those two things tends to map to these individuals generating an exponential better productive output and result in terms of their contribution to the organization. And the moral of the book was, find those people and then learn from them how they do what they do and propagate that learning to other people in the organization. So basically, shift people into being like-kind in terms of invested and engaged at a maximum 100% level and always looking for and aware of innovative and alternative and off the beaten track and out of the line alternatives or solutions for how they can provide or do or serve or solve better than current methodologies and approaches. It becomes sort of a forcing optimization function, innovation engine. And I think that's sort of part of my, my reference to a 3.0 construct, to a new evolutionary sort of orientation about how we go about doing what we're doing. And that instantiated in that is that everybody that gets involved is involved based on a self-motivating impulse. That they've made the choice and been pulled into involvement, engagement, and contribution, not as a function of being manipulated into it or being directed or ordered into it or guilted into it or dragged into it or pushed into it, but as a function of willing self-commitment, interest, and appeal. And that when it's self-motivated, and they're given a path to execution or engagement or contribution, that people will step up. And then as a collective, the mechanism has to be there so that they receive acknowledgement, recognition for doing so.
Mm-hmm. I'm just typing in the language translation. I know Anna's been asking about that, but we've had some interesting examples. I mean, we could take this thing that Doug was just saying as an example. So we've had a number of people come along and volunteer to translate. We've had volunteers for Portuguese, we had volunteers for German, we had volunteers for Spanish, we had volunteers for French, and I don't think, contrary to the hype, that we've produced a version of the handbook in any of those languages yet. I think we've produced them. We didn't quite have a volunteer in Chinese. We wrung someone's neck to try to get them to do it in Chinese, and they didn't. No surprise, especially given this thing. But even for those who sort of came forward, and there were, in the case of the Brazilian Portuguese, there was 4 or 5 people who came forward. They could have formed a team around it. It just didn't happen. So I think, Anna, the sad news, Italian version, I think we might have basically got a whole almost a whole version of the first version of the handbook. So that is the closest, I think, to a success story, and we could point you to those links. But I think a lot of the other ones bogged down, and I don't know if it's because of technology or because of teamwork or because we didn't have this mind map when people were coming along at the time, and we didn't really think, okay, what is someone who's coming along and say they are bilingual, like we had, some of the people here are bilingual already, and then we had Julia in the meeting just before you joined. Not that she is, just because she's bilingual, she would have to be a translator, but supposing she was bilingual and wanted to translate, what would she need to
facilitate that?
Make it happen, yeah. And so I think that in the case you're thinking about, Anna, maybe the question is, how much investment do people have at the start in that process if they really want the end result? Yeah, if it's sort of like they feel like they're obliged to do it, or they're interested but they don't really, I mean, you mentioned using Twitter, so it's like the idea of translating things a sentence at a time or a word at a time or something like that, as opposed to a chapter at a time. On the other hand, maybe a chapter is good because then you get, in this product thing, you get something, you get the sense of like, yes, I've finished. That's important, maybe if it's a Twitter thing, it becomes too fine-grained, and they just say, yes, I only want to do a little bit. But if you have hundreds of people, each one can do a little bit. So I don't know. Anyway, we're getting some pointers in the chat. Yeah. So I don't know if these are solving the translation question, but I think I would say, yeah, the hype is a little bit that we've actually got versions in all of these languages. I think the truth is we've only tried and we didn't get that far. But I want to say one more thing, which is that Paola said something really, really, really important last week. She said, look, if the handbook was really useful, really good, really useful for the target audience, I would have no trouble selling it to people. And I think that's almost the same thing for translations. It's like, if it was really, really useful, we'd have people volunteering to translate it into Japanese and Mongolian and into, whatever. So I think that's also a really interesting criterion. I don't know what the texts are you're looking at, but there has to be a sort of threshold beyond which you're asking someone to translate the phone book or something, and they're saying, no, I refuse. That's too boring. So if it's something that's really useful, maybe there's more hope. Okay, so we're entering the last 10 minutes. Do we want to do a quick go-around and see if people feel satisfied by the meeting as it is now? I mean, I'm not suggesting we should stop, but we're closing towards the end, so maybe we should start a recap round. And maybe update. Anna, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks so much for picking up this topic. Super useful. Yeah, so I'm interested also, just one more question on how you organize it on the back end. Do you use like Google Documents, or do you know of any kind of tool that sort of visually displays like the original text and then the translation, or
So we did try a couple tools. I could dig in my emails. This was like from the first year of the project with the Italian one. I think there were a couple different tools we tried.
Yeah.
But at the moment, in terms of organization, we've put everything on GitHub, and I'll just show you what's there. I mean, I realize GitHub's a bit of an ask, but like here, we've got English Markdown, English MediaWiki, English this. So we don't have a Spanish, but if we wanted to have a Spanish, all we do is we basically just copy this English directory into one called ES. We'd have all this structure. It would be there in English, and then someone would just go through one by one and say, okay, this chapter's been translated to Spanish, or something similar to that process. And then we could update them all separately.
That's really cool.
But the way it looks is like, so you just get this, and then if you wanted to do a translation, let's see if I can show you history. this one. Let's see. I'm just clicking around randomly, so I'll probably click on the wrong thing. But yeah, so you'd see things like this, which is like you'd see a sentence. So someone could come and do a line.
Mm-hmm.
You're translating from English to Spanish. You know, this line would be English. This line Spanish, and so you'd see exactly.
I like that.
But it's meant, you know, it's not like designed for that. It would just be a possible use case. But you could see if someone, you know, translated this paragraph, someone else could come along and they could say, no, you've translated Peeragogy wrong. It's supposed to be, you know, Peeragogy or whatever. So.
Okay, I see. So that's really interesting that you have these different colors and you can see right away what was translated, what wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what is what we're using ish nowadays for editing. So that's another thing about translation is like the hope for translation would be that people would take it and run with it. They produce the Spanish version and then just get going with that, make a whole other in Spanish, and so the translation and editing would just, you know, editing would be the next step beyond translation. But we haven't really tried it that way. It's asking a bit to ask people to know how to use GitHub. But as I said, I think at the very start of the meeting before people got here, you can actually edit things on GitHub without ever installing Git, without ever learning how that works. I'll show you. It's really simple. So let me just show you here. We'll probably not use this because we moved to something else. So let me see, where's the button? Here, there's a pencil.
Yeah.
I'm signed in to make edits. Okay, I'll sign in. But
you have to have a username to be part of GitHub?
Yeah, you need to sign up for that. So it's I don't think that there's like an anonymous way. But let me try one more time here. But yeah, if you want it, where did it go? Why is it not showing me what I want? Here.
Ah, yeah.
This. Now, if I click this button, it's like a pencil. Then I get this box.
Yeah.
Right? And if I just want to say, make the change here, I just can type in hi and
yeah.
I don't know how I say Bruce whatever.
Herzlichen Grüßen.
Yes, well, it's not the gourmet. This is just a demo. So hi to Anna, and that's it. So there it is.
Okay, I see. And then you can just so it kind of works like Google Doc, only that you have like an additional layer of saying like.
Yeah, and so there it is.
Changes.
This is now, sorry, my German is so used.
I like this. Okay, so you have 2 columns.
That was the old version, yeah. In this case, because there was nothing there, it's just a new line. So,
I like that, yeah.
So it's not tested. This is off the cuff, but it's what we're planning to use for editing, and maybe it would also work for translation. That's all.
It looks good for translation because you have the original language text and then the translated text in the next column.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And how did you set that up? What's the feed function called?
What I did was really I just imported it. So if you'd need to find a way to import so first of all, you need to break your text down into small pieces.
Yeah.
Then you'd have to upload it. It's called Git, basically. The command line one is called Git. You upload it, and then it would be here on GitHub, and then your users wouldn't have to use the command line one at all. They just have to do what I just did. And they could click and progressively edit it. You could also have a little prefix command in there, just a hand-coded one. Where'd this go here? So here. So if I want to edit it, I could say,
Because now you only have 1 column. I'm wondering, like, where did the second column come from?
So it only comes in when you save, and you're looking the difference
okay.
between the two. So that's why if you wanted to really mark it up, you could have something marked up like that, where sorry, I think this E is wrong. So, no, it's the whole thing is wrong. How do I spell this?
You can't without little marks.
Well, all right then. Finished. So you could have something like that. If you put your text in and you tag all the English one like that, as you convert it, then when you click on history, you need to
okay, you can see, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so you can see which one. I don't know.
That's really cool.
It wasn't designed for that, but it might actually work.
Yeah, this looks really interesting.
You could try it on a small thing, and it would. The nice thing about it is it would allow people to do as much or as little as they wanted. If they wanted to do the whole thing, then they just do it. But you could basically tell people, don't do more than a line or a sentence at a time, and press save regularly so that someone can check their work.
Yeah.
And then you go in here, and you see this list of commits. So it's like, you see what people have done, and they can make a little summary that says translated first sentence or first paragraph.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Good luck. It's not been tested. We've never even tried it.
I think that's interesting. I think I could try that out a little bit, play around.
And then it could be it can just be done kind of, it's clear what hasn't been done.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like by virtue of logging on, you're going to see what needs to be done.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's so true. You can just, you could see it right away because the colors or the lines would be filled. That's a really good point. Thanks so much for sharing this. This is so useful.
And I think one thing that will have to be done is that, people will be interested, they'll do something, and they won't come back unless they're reminded somehow, or...
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking. Like, how can I get that network that's already there to be involved without really investing that much time,
Right.
So that's sort of the question. And, like, is it worth it? Is it not? I'm just thinking, having it in different language versions allows other people to join in and really see the value.
I think finding a way to get it unobtrusively in front of people without nagging them is a strategy that we need to brainstorm. I've been working with my organization on that, and I finally broke through a little bit by putting everything on Asana, this project management program.
Yeah.
It's called Asana or Asana.
I see. Okay, I thought you said you put everything into a sauna.
Into a sauna, yeah. I'd like to put myself into a sauna.
That would be incredibly peaceful. All the projects now take place in the sauna.
Yeah, they're just so motivated to join. But they get these kind of strings of comment threads that give a history and remind them of what they've forgotten from the day before. And it seems to be working.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, using Asana or like different Well,
as long as we need help with that in the Peeragogy project too. I think as great as much as we like each other, I think we, maybe not Asana. We probably don't need too many tools, but I think if we're going to make good on this reboot thing, I mean, this has been waiting for a while to do it. That we haven't had a whole lot of people, including us, who've been that actively involved with actually editing the handbook. So Doug has come along and said, we need to make it easier for other people. And I think we should also check with ourselves, like let's make it easier for ourselves. So that's why I think Paola's comment from the previous week was so helpful. Is like she has to go do some workshops about this stuff. They need some exercises to do. She wants to talk about collaboration. This is what we're supposed to be experts on, but we don't actually have material that they can really use in a workshop. So she's saying, just make that, then I can use it. I can sell it in the workshop.
Yeah, She's really good about that. Yeah.
I mean,
Can
it's,
you, Joe? Can you post the link to the GitHub repositories and?
Yeah. Yes. So this is the old one. This is the old one. I'll tag it because we're going to save the chat. And I'm not. And that, I mean, it's old, but it's still fairly current. And then this is the one from last night. So this is brand new.
Okay.
And then that wiki page, I think, is on the old one. So I would say I'm reasonably speaking an expert on Git. I hate to say it because I'm not that much of an expert, but I'm reasonably speaking something of an expert on Git in the sense that I know how to use it. So I'm happy to help with that.
You're a journeyman.
Yeah, so let's say journeyman. That's fine. So, but I realize it's very scary. The fact that you can use it without installing any software is something Charlie taught me recently, and I think that's very encouraging. You can basically just use it as a wiki, the entire GitHub, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Special software. So Charlotte, remember when you were in London, we were trying to install stuff. We don't actually need to go there. Just create an account, log on, start clicking on things, and you can find a way to edit it. So that
will it prevent like major grievous errors on the user's part?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, like you'll be able to do less. Let's put it that way. So you can't delete everything one click at a. I mean, you could delete everything one click at a time, but you'd have to be pretty determined. But the nice thing about Git is it's all saved and backed up. That's its primary purpose. So even if you deleted everything, we could go back to how it was before it was deleted. So I think it really is basically, you could think of it as like Google Docs, where everything is saved. Every single thing is saved. So you may feel a little bit embarrassed to be doing that in public, but we're used to it by now. Other people can be embarrassed. We won't do it.
No, we're not afraid of making mistakes.
In public. Very vigorously, once a week at least. So those are the links, and I would really appreciate your insights in the Quick Start Guide. I will put a link to this coggle that we just made into the Quick Start Guide as a meta. So that will be something.
It'd be nice when you went to Peeragogy.org, you saw like 5 links of things that people were currently working on and nothing else, so that, you know, translations, GitHub, whatever, you know, just the 5 things, and you just choose one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's there's an intermediary step that's always been missing, which is that somebody who does that, you know, needs to have a landing page that says, okay, this is where you are now, and these are the choices of where you can go, based on what you want to do. Right? So if somebody wants to figure out how do I, you know, how do I work on this particular file or text or whatever, what does that look like, and how do I do that? So there's that intermediary piece for every single one of those 5 choices you just mentioned, that sort of walks them to the place where they can start doing. And I think that's really a key facilitative piece that's always been missing.
Yeah.
So you have do it, learn it, history, or something like that, just so that, you know, if they are more of a kind of person that wants to get the whole context, they can go to the historical record.
Well, there's a layer. There's a presumed layer that these kinds of things always tend to suffer from, which is a presumed literacy and competence and fluency of the people arriving, and that's a really big wrong assumption to make. There are people that arrive that are, you know, you sort of want to go to your lowest common denominator, but there are people arriving that don't know what a wiki is. There are people arriving that don't know what GitHub is. There are people that are arriving that don't know what HTML is, right? And so,
Bye, everyone. Sorry, gotta go.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Bye.
much for sharing.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time or sometime
Good.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Bis
Bye.
später. Tschüss.
Yeah.
So, so figuring out that interstitial stuff that helps facilitate people, enable people, and guide them to where they want to get to do what they want to do is necessary, and it needs to be really simple, how-to, basic stuff.
Yeah.
And that's one part of the challenge of getting people involved. And then the other question that Paolo is ultimately raising is generating pull, right? How does this project generate pull for the people that come and that are motivated to spend attention here?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is getting, people stepped up to do translations. Somehow that didn't happen. What was the sort of cultural or systemic or architectural failure that enabled them to sort of be lost, right?
Yeah, I think just before I lose my thought, I think that one thing we haven't done is kind of just put people on a regular rotation. I mean, Anna I usually remember to include her because she was pretty heavily involved at one point, but there's people like that. Charlie's friend who wanted to do Korean translations, and even if they don't respond every time, if they're on a regular, like, okay, we're meeting, and we remember, or we have a list of a circle of people. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, people want that. They want that.
So those are community. These are all community support functions, right?
Right.
How do we generate them? Like, who's the keeper of the circulation list for invitations for these events? And maybe that list should be set up in a way that facilitates outreach to all of the people on that list, right? As a community facilitative service, right? So, I mean, in principle, and okay, let me sort of give you a vision, and then we can look at, you can think about it from the standpoint of where are we now and what would it take to get there, right? So if I wanted to do a shout out and say to the Peeragogy collective, I'm looking to do a group brainstorming session around the metacognition map for this project. Anybody that would be interested in being involved, ping me back in some way. And I would get a bunch of people with associated emails that say, yeah, count me in. And then it becomes, my responsibility to go ahead and schedule something for everybody, right? So that kind of functionality, one layer, vision is that kind of functionality being there, and the other is how do we make sure everybody involved knows how to use it? It comes with an owner's manual.
Well, maybe we could just have like a 15-minute, I mean, this is just a little, what do you call it, startup.
YouTube or a PowerPoint?
No, well, yeah, right. I got this thing called, oh God, Screencastify, and it basically just records whatever you're doing on your screen. So, or we could have a, Q&A session before each specific hangout.
So I think that this mind map is cool because we could also use it as both things that could go right and also a list of possible things that could go wrong. And many of these things, if they're not there, the whole thing will fail. So for example, language. Well, if someone doesn't speak English, right now they're pretty much hosed with this project. So that's bad. But
so it's a codependency. It's a codependency column to everything that we're doing that says what is this dependent on.
Yeah. But I think it's dependent on all of these things, and I would say probably all, I mean maybe not all of them, but many of them are equally as vital as being able to speak the language, you know, but it's not as obvious how they go wrong or what it would mean to go wrong. But I think, you know, for example, with the authority leadership, I think that's an interesting dichotomy of the 3.0 or, you know, 2.0 or 1.0 way of thinking, that if someone's coming here and they say, this was the issue with the Chinese translation, the guy said, if you're going to translate this thing into Chinese, I still don't believe him, but he said Chinese students require detailed instructions about exactly what to do and how to do it and stuff like that. And I was thinking, well, Peeragogy just doesn't work that way. Maybe the concept of Peeragogy doesn't translate into Chinese or something. But then I think people are people like anybody else, you know, so they must do peer learning. There must be something wrong with this. So I got really stuck with that. But, you know,
culturally, it's distinctly possible that the cultural imprinting is so powerful and so non-collective pedagogical in nature that's true. So in my universe of 3.0 unconditional love, okay, cool. So what does guidance, advice, instruction set, protocol look like on a typical project, Chinese project, to make it comfortable and familiar and facilitative for that particular market and audience?
Because unconditional love, if somebody landed on that, and they were Chinese, it would be really hard to figure out. I mean, I don't know if there's a translation.
Well, we'd have to ask a Chinese person, I suppose. Probably there is. I mean, certainly there's the translation for love, so we just got to find out. And I think that,
but you know, you can have the translation, and it still doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but no, we'd have to have someone guide us through the process. And I think, yes, it could be Chinese. It could also be, you know, CEO speak. It could be was reminding us of that. At Lisa will probably still be there. She's saying, you know, you want to talk to a CEO or an executive. Well, you have about 30 seconds. You know, it's not even an elevator. It's not even an elevator pitch. It's about a floor you've got, and then you know. So you've got to get it all across, and it's got to be about the bottom line. So how does that, you know, Chinese might be sounding pretty easy to us at that point, you know, if we're thinking, okay, bottom line in seconds. Gosh, that's hard. So, you know, so
you want your employees to learn something without spending anything on it?
Oh, well, okay. You're good. Yeah. I'll do it in Chinese, then I'll be really If you can do that in Chinese, then I think we've got the thing sold.
All right, I'll try.
So, yeah, that's good. I think that's good, though. CEO speak is a good one. So, okay, well, shall we call it a day? We did an interesting little messy artifact, I think.
Do you have a place to put? Will you grab the notes and store them where they?
Yeah,
do you have a repository?
One thing I could do is I'll go through and kind of call out my Peeragogy circle on Google Plus and share it with you guys.
Cool. That would be great.
And yeah, I think you can just adopt it, you know, and put it in as a Peeragogy circle. And then if we all invite, like if 4 of us invite that circle, even if people are getting duplicate invites, then you know, I think it'll be penetrating people's consciousness a little bit more.
And I think Doug's comment when we spoke last about the who, what, when, where, why, and how, you know, an invitation should show them, I mean, yes, you could join the meeting, but if we also kind of had a little forum and said, you know, we're meeting for this purpose, this point, and so on and so forth, then...
Most people want to know what the topic is, even though we hate that sometimes. You know, most people want to know what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah, but we could queue that up. We could queue that up a little bit in advance to just, you know, we make these event pages, for example. We can start populating them.
And you can ask people what, you know, come and suggest a topic or ask a question.
I think the calendar might be a better tool for it than the event.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Yeah, anything that requires a response without being too annoying is a good thing. And I mean, I'm so good at filtering stuff out that I don't want that. If something comes to my attention, it's usually something that I've allowed in because of my set of criteria.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, my principle these days, what I've said to people is etiquette and protocols of, the antiquarian and industrial era are gone. They're dead. Long live.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get a response from somebody, then you keep going and you keep escalating the number of hits until you get a response. And either the response is, go away, don't bother me, kid, or the response is, sorry it's taken so long to respond, but here's my response. And there is no longer an etiquette point that says somebody will or has to respond when you ask. That's the thing that's going away. But there is the means and the vehicle to repeat the request or inquiry until you do get an answer.
Yeah, and it's kind of a self-serve thing where you have to remove yourself from the list in order to, not get the penetration.
The notices. Exactly.
Okie dokie. I've got to do my thing here.
Okay, do the thing. That's good. We're on a little bit long, but thanks for the time. And yeah, let's again. Paul had these great notes. I think we should. I honestly think those notes should be moved in to become the new intro to the handbook because they kind of state what we're good at as well as what needs to happen. So I think that would help us. We're thinking, but what are our invitations? What are this is another dimension. Maybe we could talk about another time. As to think unconditional love, that's what we want to send. But we do also want to receive something. Probably it's the same thing back. But but we need to think a little bit more about what are we asking? Why are we inviting?
What are we asking? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, let's leave it there. Thanks a lot. Charlotte, did you catch the chat? Shall I do that?
If you could, I did. I went out, so I don't have it all.
Yeah, I got it. I've got it. Yeah. Good. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the broadcast. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye.